Hey, this is Lee with theprojectjournal.com. Today I'm going to be building a computer for my brother. I've been building my own computers for a while and he wanted one for himself. So I thought I'd make a video and we'd go over the assembly of the computer as well as loading of the operating system and the motherboard drivers, and do everything we need to do to get it up and running. This is going to be a fairly simple build. This is not going to be a high-end gaming machine or really a budget computer either. Either one is going to kind of be a mid-range computer. So we'll just we'll get started putting the disk drives in and getting the motherboard ready, and we'll put this thing together. I've got this computer case by Cooler Master, and I've used this case before, and I really think it's a good case. Both sides come off for access, better access to both sides of your drives and such. So to kind of get started, we're going to pull this front panel off, and it comes off really fairly easy. Just be a little careful with it. And this is the Asus DVD drive and burner I got for it. So I'm just going to kind of slide. If we were going to put more than one drive in, you'd just break this that knockout piece out there. But we're just going to do one drive. So I'm going to kind of slide that back in there a little bit, and then I'm going to take this front panel off, which is going to be where the drive protrudes through the front. And then I'm just going to kind of put my panel back on, and once we get our sides off, we can adjust our disk drive a little bit and get it right where we want it. Take the sides off. We've just got these screws that hold the panels on. And just kind of pull it back like that. It comes off. Same thing with the other side. Just going to go back. And they go on just as easy. So you can see kind of what I was talking about with the back of the optical drive. You can see it protrudes through the back here, and we've got our mounting holes in the side here. But I'm going to take this a minute here to adjust it, push it from the back, and get it kind of flush at the front of the computer for. So that looks good, and it does right there. So what I'm going to do now, so I've got the screws and such here in this box. What I'm going to do now is just put a screw anchor in place. Now we're going to put our hard drive in. We'll set some of these things over here. And for the hard drive, we've got a big fan around this area kind of wants to make the hard drive protrude out a little bit. I'm going to put the hard drive in this slot right there. And it lines up nicely. We've got several screw holes through here. These are a little bit higher to accept a hard drive. And I'm just going to So we've got our hard drive and our optical drive in at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and put our power supply in. This is a power supply that had outstanding reviews, and a lot of the components I buy are more than who makes them, or more importantly, I just kind of look for good reviews on the when people leave you know, a lot of good reviews. I feel like it's a good testament to the quality of the units. So. Okay, you can see I've got my power supply in. I just I put it in place, and we've got 4 screws here that I put in to hold it in place. We've got our power supply in, and we've got our hard drive, we've got our optical drive up here. We've got all those installed. So what I'm going to do now is move on to prepping the motherboard. Okay, I've got my motherboard unboxed here, and I'm just going to go over real quickly, why someone would, I've been asked why would somebody want to build their own computer. Well, there's a few reasons. For me, it's kind of a hobby. I enjoy doing it, and you get to put exactly in the computer what you want. You want a little bit more RAM, you want a little bit faster processor, you want a video card, or maybe you're into music and you want a better sound card, or whatever. You can put in it whatever you want to. And the third thing is, when some of these prepackaged computers, you buy a computer at Walmart or whatever, it comes with some software on it, some trial software that, is just, to me, is just a little bit better than malware. So some of that stuff's hard to get rid of, and I just like a clean operating system with the drivers, and to start off with, and something unburdened by extra junk that got put on at the factory. So anyway, I guess what I'm going to do next is go ahead and put the processor on, which is going to be fairly simple. Building your own computer is it's not nearly as hard as people might think, and I know it could be intimidating, but if you're on the edge of the fence about whether you think you should build one or not, just go ahead and give it a shot, and have fun with it. And if you run into problems, there's a lot of places on the web that will forums and such that can help you through your difficulties. And for me, I guess I've had good luck. I put together several computers, and they all went really smooth, and I never had any trouble. So what I've got here is a quad-core Athlon processor, and let me see if I can get a little bit closer view of where we're going to put this thing. It's fairly easy to install. It's hard to mess up, actually. If you look, let me see if I can get that where you can see it. Right there's a little arrow on the core of the processor, and on the board down here there's a little arrow, and you just line those two up. We've got a little lever here. We're gonna pull our little lever back, which loosens the socket, and we're gonna just drop that right in there with the arrows lined up. Make sure it's laying there flat like it's supposed to, which it is. And we're gonna close our little lever and latch it. It takes no force whatsoever. And here is our thermal compound right here. That's on our heat sink. So we're gonna put that face down, and we've got a couple of latches here. What we want to do is turn this so that, back this out a little bit. We've got a latch here, and we've got a latch here, and here's our points on either side of the processor where the latch is going to go. And I'm going to turn this like this, because here's our little lever to tighten the latch down once we've got it in place. So we're going to keep that to the outside here so that we can have plenty of room for it to work. So I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to hook this latch over here on this side. Might turn it this way so you can see a little bit better. The latch at this point is fairly loose. Okay, now we've got our latch hooked on either side. Here we have a little lever, and we're going to turn this lever. As we turn this over, it's going to tighten everything up. And there is your CPU and your CPU heatsink and fan. So now we've got the CPU fan to hook up, and we'll look around the board here, see if we can find it. Okay, our CPU fan is right here, so we're just going to plug it in right there. So next thing I'm going to do is I've got some dual channel G.Skill RAM, which I've had good luck with G.Skill. It's highly rated. The reviews are excellent. Everywhere you see reviews on G.Skill RAM, it's always very good. So I think I paid about $40 for this RAM, and I've got 4 gigs total. I've got two 2 gig sticks. So there's really only one way that the RAM can go in. If you look at the RAM, you can see that the center slot, this slot that goes over there, over this little push up in the RAM slot, it's it's more towards one end than the other, so we can only do it one way. So with these clips out, we're going to put this RAM in, we're going to push it down, and the clips just kind of automatically come up and clip the RAM right here on the end. So one's in, we'll put the other one in. After I get them in, I kind of push the the sides of the clips to make sure they go where they're supposed to. The next thing I'm going to do is kind of prepare the case for the motherboard. So we're going to set this aside and work on that next. Okay, kind of as a recap, over here we've got our RAM in, we've got our CPU and the fan on, we've got the fan plugged in, we've got our power supply in the case, which is held in by these 4 screws. We've got our optical drive up here. We've got our hard drive here, which is held in by screws here. Optical drive's held in by screws up here, and we're open on both sides of the case, so there's screws on the other side holding those in. So what we're going to do next is, what we need to do is install some standoffs, which raises the motherboard up off the motherboard tray. So we're going to get some standoffs, and we're going to look on our motherboard and see exactly where the standoffs are going to go. We've got a hole here, a hole over here. Got one here, one here, one here, and one down here. So what it kind of looks like to me is we're going to put a standoff here, 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 and then one down here. So let's do that. Okay, here's what our standoffs look like. They just screw into these holes to keep the motherboard from sitting against the case. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and start mounting the motherboard. Alright, you can see that I've got my motherboard standoffs in, and one of the things I like to do with I don't just hand tighten those, I like to tweak them with the pliers, or if you've got a nut driver the right size, that's probably even better, but I just like to get them good and tight so that, you know, it can be a pain when you're taking the, you know, if you ever need to take the motherboard out, it can be a pain if those start coming loose when you're trying to unscrew the motherboard. And if anybody's you know what I'm talking about. It gets to the point where it doesn't want to come at all. So I like to get these like to get these good and tight and make sure that they hold if you're ever trying to pull the motherboard screws. Another thing we need to do is, before we put the motherboard in, is this the motherboard you know, connection panel goes right here in this slot. So we need to put that in. And looking at the motherboard, it's going to go in just like this, and it just kind of snaps into place. One of the things I learned early on building computers is it's a heck of a lot easier to make some of the connections on the motherboard before you actually put it back into the case, particularly some of these connections from the front board. So I'm going to go ahead and do some of that right now. I've got my little book out here so I can kind of see what I'm doing. It says on the board, but you know, I've got my reading glasses on. It's still hard to read the fine print, so I've got my booklet out here. So we're just going to pull some of these wires out here. We've got the hard drive LED button here, or LED light switch I should say, and according to the manual it goes right there. We've got the plus, the negative is the white and the positive is the red. course, with the reset switch, that doesn't matter so much. And we've got our power switch, which goes right there, and we need our LED light, which it does make a difference, positive and negative on that, and the according to the book, where I'm setting the negative is going to go on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and make that connection. Okay, so we've got our connections from the controls on the front panel, the reset switch, the power switch, and the lights for the hard drive and the power button. See if I've got this again here right. We'll go ahead and hook up our HD audio right here, and as you can see, I've got my USB connection for the front port already hooked up here, our USB connectors. And so what I'm going to do now is kind of start moving the motherboard. I'm going to pull these wires back and kind of move the motherboard down into its resting place, and I'm going to start bolting the motherboard to the standoffs that I installed earlier. Okay, I've got all my screws on the motherboard holding it in place. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to hook up some of my power cords. Of course, this is our main power connection for the motherboard, which pretty much runs the whole thing. So I'm just going to, it can only go one way, and I'm going to put it right there, and I kind of like put my finger underneath the motherboard and kind of support it a little bit as I push this in. And I don't know, that was a very slight click, but I heard it click as it went into place. Okay, we've got these connectors to supply power to our disk drive and our hard drive. I'm going to go ahead and install those. The ones that I just put in supply power to the hard drive and the optical drive. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of L-shaped there. It can only be plugged in one way. So now we've got some SATA connections that came with the motherboard. We're going to use these to connect our disk drive and our hard drive to the motherboard. And they also have a little L shape on the connection. Okay, I'm going to take this off here so you can see what I just did. I made these connections right here, the SETI connections. One on the back here, one on the back here. Here's the hard drive, there's the disk drive, and then I connected them to the motherboard down here. Okay, if you have this CPU 8-pin connector like what comes with this Corsair CX430, and you look on your motherboard and you've only got a 4-pin, what you want to do is move this connector as far to the left as you can, and it'll only connect one way. So you move it to the left and use these 4 pins on the right. And if we had a high-end video card, that's what we'd use our PCIe for. We don't, so we're not going to worry about that. Okay, I just pulled the wire from I've got a large case fan up front. Just pulled the wire from that, and I'm going to connect it right here to one of these connectors from the power supply, so we'll have some air moving through there. Now, if this was a gaming computer and we had a high-end video card, I might add some more fans to this, but I think we're going to be okay with what we've got here now. So, all right, I don't know if you can see now, but I kind of bunched the cables up and I zip tied them together, try to keep them out of the way of anything important, and same way with my front panel wires. I mean, it's not professional, but it's as good as what I do for my hobby stuff. So anyway, what I'm going to do next is put the panels back on. Then we're going to hook up a monitor and keyboard and a mouse and see if we can get Windows 7 loaded on it. So anyway, I just hooked up the computer and turned the power on. Hooked up the monitor and a keyboard and a mouse, and opened the disk drive and put Windows 7 in, and then closed it and restarted, and it's Windows is currently loading files. So all I've done since Windows finished installing was I put in a username and a name for the computer. I put in the product key and did the date and time, and now I'm getting ready to run the disk that came with the motherboard to install the drivers for the motherboard. I'm going to install the Athlon chipset driver. I'm going to install the Realtek audio driver. Install the graphics driver. Okay, now I'm going to install the LAN driver. Okay, anyway, I'm about to run out of time, but I went ahead and got the LAN driver installed, and I restarted the computer, and everything's up and running fine. So that's pretty much all of it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I've got a complete parts list on theprojectjournal.com on the link below if you want to see exactly what was used for this build. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.